Yeah, we're live. It is 7:23, 7:24. A few minutes late. Yeah, it's all part of the deal. Hopefully everybody's doing well on this Saturday night, having a good weekend, getting lots of stuff done. I did get a bunch of stuff done today. Did a bunch of stuff, clean the garage out to get the L78 396 organized in a position so I could do some assembly. I'm very excited about that. But I do have a trip to West Tech first coming up, so that'll be good. First of all, I want to talk about, I told you guys before that I had a Florida announcement, and it's that I want to go catch pythons. I want to do it for two reasons. One, I want to show that the people in California and the people in Florida are actually a lot more alike than they are different. That despite the fact that we might have different political views or religious views or educational backgrounds or whatever the thing is, we're from different parts of the country, that really we're people, and people are people. The other reason is I want to go help. I want to show that there are people out there that want to come help. I don't want these invasive species to like destroy these natural habitats and all of these things. And they're already starting. The people that this has been going on for a while now, but the people that have been doing this have been making a dent, and they've been helping out. Some of the wildlife seems to be coming back, which is good, but it's it's a multi-opportunity thing for me. I've never caught the biggest snake I've ever caught was when I was like probably it's either late 6s or early 7s. It was about a 6-foot gopher snake. I know that it was a lot bigger than I was. And it was it's the biggest one I've caught. So I want to catch something big. Like I want to go there and catch something that I can call Bo, because it's got to be at least 10 feet. So it'll be the perfect 10. So if I catch one and then it's over 10 feet, then we will christen it Bo. Bo Derek, for people that don't know what the movie 10 is, and shame on you. But I want to go down there and help. So I want to offer, I watched lots of videos for the guys, Python Cowboy and Wild Man, all those things. I watched the Guardians of the Glades and stuff, and that's all cool stuff. A lot of that is fun stuff for TV. But and like I said, I caught my first snake when I was 5. Caught the biggest snake back when I was 7, and all the other snakes since then have all been regional stuff here in northern and southern California. And if I go to other states, I try to catch snakes, like when I went back to Ohio, but all of those snakes were 1 feet or 2 feet, so they were all fairly small. So I want to go catch something big, because I've never done that, and I've never, obviously, I don't ever remember. I probably have held a python like at a show or something, and I know my son did, but catching one in the wild would be awesome. And having had experience since I was 5 till now, sometimes we'll go out and I'll catch 100 of them. So I'm pretty familiar with how to go about this. It'll just be cool. It's just it's something on my list. So I'm going to take a trip back there if any of the guys ever watch any of this stuff, I'm just going to go there, and either I'm going to go there with a couple of buddies like Jimmy from HP, maybe my buddy Bernie. He's in Georgia, so I can go by. I got another friend, Mike, that lives out there, and so I want to go by and see him. And even if we can just go down there and do it, which would be okay. Or I would be happy to offer my services to anybody that wants to just have hired hand, not even hired hands, because they don't have to pay us. We'll just go out and help them catch stuff, and just for the opportunity and the experience. And they can keep all of the, if they're licensed people, they can keep all of the bounty money that the Department of Water, Florida Department of Water, whatever, that they get paid for. So I would just go down there for the experience. I just go out and work. So, but at any rate, I want to go down there for a road trip and go out and stomp around out in the wilderness, out in the swamps, and see gators and raccoons and all the cool, all the cool reptiles that should be there, because they have a lot of cool snakes. They have stuff that I don't get to see here, and that's one thing I like about going to different parts of the country is I get to see different things. They're very cool, and so this would be awesome. Even though we're, I'm I was talking to my buddy, and we were talking about, as a snake enthusiast, and a nature lover, the idea of having to kill these snakes is not, I don't like, but I'm for it because they shouldn't be there. All the rattlesnake wrangling and nonsense that goes on in Texas, where they have these big things and they kill these rattlesnakes, that's just nonsense. That's there's no reason for that. Rattlesnakes are not bad. I know, because if I catch 100 snakes in a year, 70 or 75 of them are all rattlesnakes, and we just remove them or relocate them or just let them go, because they should be there and they're part of it, and they kill. They keep the rat population, mice population under control and stuff, so they should be there. So I'm adamantly against that, but for what they're doing in Florida. So the same thing. I've owned iguanas in my life as a kid growing up. We had pets and stuff, and the iguana invasion there is just bad. So I've watched the people with their pellet guns and stuff doing that. And again, as much as I wouldn't do that here, to the native species, that's all part of it. So what I want to do is go down there and catch something, catch a giant snake. So it would be very, very cool. I don't go down there with delusions of grandeur thinking I'm going to go find a 20-foot snake. Really, having done this for decades now, when you go, the hardest part about catching a snake is finding it. It's having you intersect with where that snake is. I know where the snakes are. I know how to go look for them. I know how to find them. But it's not where you're looking, it's when you're looking. Because that snake may be there, probably is going to be there. But will it be there when you walked over that spot, when you lifted up that log or that rock or whatever? That's always the thing. I tell my kids that all the time. I said, look, it's not where. It's not always about where. I mean, we need to look in the right spots, but we're looking under rocks and logs and sticks and tin and whatever, cardboard and stuff. And so, and we're out in the wilderness and we know where they are. We know where they're going to be. But if there's not one there, it doesn't mean that there are never snakes there. We find shedding there. We're like, look, there was a snake here. It just wasn't here while we were here. So it's got to be the same thing out there. Guys are driving around some on the levees and roads and traipsing through the crazy wild men, running barefoot out, which I salute the guy. I could not do that. I don't have the feet to do that. I don't even like walking on gravel. My son, on the other hand, so since the day he was born, he immediately kicks his shoes and socks off. When he puts his little shoes and socks on, he immediately kicks those off and walks around barefoot and can run around out on the roads and rock and all that stuff. And I can't do it. So a guy that's out traipsing around in shorts and bare feet out in the Everglades, my hat's off to a guy that can do that. That's pretty awesome. And the guys that are reach down and grab the wild hog by the ear and jump in the water with it and hog tie it, and it's pretty gangster. But like I said, going there and finding them, I think, will be the big thing. Actually, if I find one on the side of the road or whatever, I honestly don't think catching it's going to be terribly difficult. It'd be nice to catch them and not get bit, but sometimes that's part of the experience. So enough about that. So I want to go do that. So I'm just figuring out what's a good time, how I can arrange all that with my buddies and get down there and make all that work. It'll be cool. So I want to do that. And then I also want to go to dive at Tiger Beach, because I want to dive with tiger sharks and great hammerheads. So those are two things that are on the list, on the to-do list soon. So I want to do both of those. So catch a giant python and dive with tiger sharks. All that's good. So, but tonight we're going to talk about the photo that I have up is a 2-liter, right at 2-liter B series build that had a ported head and cams and this EDELEBROCK Victor X intake manifold, the big throttle body and high compression. So it ran as an NA motor in one of the classes at Bonneville and did set a record in it. It was in a little Civic hatch, which is not ideal for Bonneville, but still it ran good and went fast. This thing made 240 or 245 at the tire, so it did really well. The interesting thing is, having tested this Victor X intake manifold several times in the past, I was actually not a big fan of it. It did what a lot of these intake manifolds do. You'll notice it has a bigger plenum, so we can discuss what you think plenum volume does. But the other thing that it really has is it has shorter runners than the Type R or the P30, the B16 intake manifold. So it's much shorter runner. So as you might expect, it's a higher RPM deal. And this thing did run high. This particular motor, even at 2 liters, did run fairly high RPM. I think it ran up around 9,000 RPM. And I remember doing the initial dyno test. I'm like, this thing doesn't even make 210 or 215 at the tire. They're like, no, it makes more than that. Just you need to keep. Where are you at? I said, well, it looks like the power is already flattened out because I'm at like 8,300 or something, and they're like, no, it's going to come back up. I'm like, I don't really see motors do that very often, unless we come up on the VTEC cam, and this was already well into the VTEC cam. But sure enough, it did. It found another happy spot and jumped up in power a pretty good bit. I thought it was interesting. Maybe we finally found out where this intake manifold excels at. But given all the other things that the motor had, the reason that it was really making good power was because it had lots of good things going for it. But the thing is, this thing also had an air intake that went out from, the throttle body position back by the firewall, came forward, bent down, went into the where they always go in the little air opening in the fender well, and then went through the fender well, and then had a tube and a radius air horn entry that came out like in the fog light area up in front of the car. I'm like, that's really, really long. That's probably not going to be conducive to where you're wanting this to make lots of power. And they're like, no, I think I have an eyelash or something. They're like, no, it works. I'm like, okay, you got, I'll run it and see what happens. And sure enough, I was very, very surprised how well that worked, because I took it off and put a short one on there, and it wanted to do this. It wanted to do this. So I'm like, well, you're getting cold air from up there. That's where you should get it from. And that goes all the way in there, and it doesn't hurt, power on the top end. It didn't seem to gain any power down low. I didn't really run it down at 2,500 or whatever, but it didn't seem to hurt it on the big end. So I'm like, yeah, that worked perfect. So we'll have a poll. I was going to have a poll about was it the Plenum volume that added all the power to this motor, but we know that that's not the case. Should I go to Florida and catch Bo, the 10-foot minimum take a road trip to Florida and catch Bo, the 10-foot minimum python. Bo, the perfect 10. Maybe she'll be an 11. If it's a female, it's even better, because those are the ones that have the eggs, and those are the ones that lay lots and lots of eggs and then create lots more pythons and lots more trouble and stuff. And they're the big ones. Maine's in the house. Bernsey. Gary, Rich, Kevin, Victor. Have you done a 22R? I have not. Plenum volume is equal to cubic inch displacement. I don't think that that's actually really a thing. Way, you helped me out so much. You're really a gift. Thank you. Nice to hear. Pythons are dangerous. They're very dangerous to. They're not that dangerous to humans. The Burmese pythons can get big. The biggest one they caught is over 18 feet. And if you were there by yourself, especially if you were in the water, you'd have to know what you're doing to take care of that. But they're really bad for all of the mammals and birds and things that populate because there's no natural predators. When the snakes are little, Then they could be eaten by birds and alligators and things. But when they get big enough, there's just nothing there that's going to hurt them. Scott, take a machete. Yep, that's planned. And something stronger than that. Single plane elbow versus high ram for boost. The high ram is probably better than a single plane. Every time I've run a high ram versus a single plane, but we can take a look at you can take a look at the intake manifold testing that I did. Probably because the Super Victor was not out when I did the single plane or when I did the cathedral port test. It was available when I did the rec port test. So if you look at those manifolds, you can kind of see whether the high ram makes better power than like a Victor Jr. Because the fact that it has an elbow on it is not going to change that. Distribution will probably be better in a high ram, I would guess, than a single plane. But now that you're asking that question, I'm going to be, let's see. I'm curious. I think that I looked this up, and I think that the high ram was better, but luckily I can overlay these. LS3 big EFI intake manifold test. So we'll look at a final Super Victor. .600 horsepower. Yeah, the high ram was better than the 4150. The high ram with the single throttle opening was better than the Super Victor with a 4150 opening. Better everywhere, all the way through the curve, from top to bottom. You can the 4500 version of that Super Victor works a little bit better. 4500, but only at the very top. Like, it makes the same peak power as the high ram, but the high ram is still better through almost all of the curve. So I would, in that case, I would pick a high ram over that, and that's because the Super Victor has two sets. There's two longs and two shorts. And the high ram basically has 8 good length runners. They should feed the meat to the prisoners. The guys the people that are contracted to get these snakes, the guys that are getting this bounty money and stuff from the Department of Water or whatever, Florida Water Conservation or whatever it's called, they also get to keep the snakes. So the snakes are euthanized, and then they weigh them and measure them and pay them, and then but the person that caught the snake gets to keep it, and then all of those guys skin the snakes and cut them up and sell the meat and sell the eggs and and one guy made soap out of it, out of the fat, and then they obviously skin them and with the skins for boots and wallets and wristbands and headbands and belts or whatever. And so they try to make extra money off of that too. And I didn't realize it, but until watching it, but they are also paid an hourly rate while they're officially out working on catching these snakes. Reticulated pythons, yes, get very big. There's the big argument between, it's like East Coast, West Coast thing. Which side of the big snake are you on? Are you a reticulated python guy? Or are you the anaconda guy? The consensus kind of is that the reticulated python gets longer and the anaconda gets thicker. It's a heavier bodied one, but I know that. Who was it? It was maybe the New York Zoo, and I read about this back when I was a kid. They had a standing offer back then. It was $5 or $10 grand or something like that for anybody that could bring in a 30-foot snake, and nobody ever did. It was never claimed. I had a copperhead about 2 feet from my left boot a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, they will. They're copperheads are beautiful too. Like I said, since I catch rattlesnakes and stuff, and I usually have to go look for them. Not very rarely do we ever come upon them. I remember one time with my son being up in our ranch that we had, and just walking down the road, and there was a big rattlesnake. That was probably big. It was like a 4 foot or 4.5 feet or something. It was pretty good size. It was the biggest one I'd seen up there, but it was just crawling across the road. But that's definitely the exception. And like I said, that's just a time thing. There's lots of snakes up there. We know because I catch them all the time. But our paths it was fate. Our paths had just intersected. I kind of scared my son though. He was young at the time. I pet a live 25-foot snake at a local university. Must have been a reticulated python. I think that the biggest one in captivity is about 25 feet. Snake whacking day. No, I don't do that. Yeah, the iguanas are insane. I like the I would like to know more about the air rifles that they're using. They look like they have cylinders on them that look like, so they're probably CO2s, but they've got big cylinders on them that look like the ones that they use on the paintball guns. Come to Sandy Valley, Nevada, and see our new Family Dollar. What's your new Family Dollar? Snakes and gators. Yeah, they have lots of stuff that'll bite you, stab you, or stick you. Yeah, Fast TV. If they have freezes, that can help with a lot of them. I've pet iguana for 25 years. Man, it must have been big after 25 years. Yeah, and they give you the tea. They give you the tail whip too. All snakes need to be cute is to have fur and legs and be warm blooded. No, snakes are awesome. James, you tried boa constrictor in Central America? Snake hunting for pythons is best at night. Yeah, there we do that here too. A lot of times they'll come out and just lay on the roads because it's to get the warmth. And they are nocturnal. They hunt at night, especially if in Florida, I would imagine, because it gets hot there, like here. They can't go out during the day. If it's 100 degrees outside, they can't go out because if they're out in the sun at 100 degrees, they can die. A lot of people don't realize that they thermoregulate, but they don't just thermoregulate to try to get warm. They also have to get cool. Their body has to be in this mid temperature range. So they'll go down underground when it gets hot because they're trying to regulate. Get a lot of copperheads in Texas. That's what I've heard. Started feeding the feral cats and it seemed to help. Yeah, in Florida, you guys have big indigo snakes there too that eat the copperheads. Michigan's water moccasins, yep. Utah copperheads, rattlesnakes, and quite a few others. Cottonmouths. Yeah, Burns and Rich, the first time you had one of the BMX bikes, before, if you had, and especially if you had them early on with the goosenecks and you didn't have the gooseneck pad on it, everybody's racked themselves in one of those when you're a kid, especially when you're riding and you hit a curb and things stop. That's right, Todd. My name is Tenderfoot. I really need to walk around barefoot more. Saw Marlon Perkins wrestling Anaconda. Yeah, that's right. I watched Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom. After all, Marlon was just like, well, I sit in the safety of the blinds while Jim is out there wrestling because I've done my thing. Let's see. You can go deep sea fishing in Pinata's Bay. I would like to go dive with. The other thing I want to do is I want to dive, just snorkel, free dive with whale sharks too. Some great restaurant stops for you to road trip to Florida. Very cool. A Victor X manifold for GSR, but the runners look pretty long. I'd never seen a long runner version. So now I can scroll back down. Do turbos do okay with a dual plane intake manifold? Yeah, it doesn't matter. It does the same thing that it does NA. I want to put sloppy stage 2 in my LQ4. Other than springs, will the stock push rods be okay? You should look at the stock push rods and you should look at the stock rockers and make sure that the rocker cups are not shiny if they have a lot of miles on them, and that the push rod tips are not bad. And I don't know if that stock push rod length will be okay, because a lot of those sloppy stage 2s that you buy have a different base circle. So especially the cheap ones. So I don't know. You have to measure it and see. What's the best factory intake for the 5.3? The one that you have on there, whatever the stock one is. The best one's a Trailblazer SS, but the truck one works good too, especially under boost. Regarding Plenum manifold design, have you done any testing on a 5-liter style upper that has a throttle body on the opposite side as the runners? Is from benefit to the hard 180-degree turn. The factory intake has the opening on the opposite side of the runners. The throttle body is on the opposite side because the runners go up and turn toward the passenger side, and or turn toward the driver's side, and the throttle body opening is on the passenger side. So the air has to go in through that common single tube into the rest of the common plenum where the runners end. So it's already doing that. I think plenum volume for the carburetor manifold. If it's smooth out the transition and distribution. So looking for a cheap small block Chevy tunnel ram. Fish and wildlife conservation. Love to see you put a North Star through its paces. I know an engineer involved in the supercharged North Star program. Rich, you can do that either way. If you're doing a return style system, most guys go through the rail and then to the fuel pressure regulator at the end of that and then return it after it. There's a place in Washington State that has at least one green anaconda, maybe two. Is so a zoo or something? We had a couple here the last time I was at. They had one in San Francisco, and then down in San Diego too at the San Diego Zoo, which is huge, and they have a really cool. I love all the other ones. Like I honestly don't care about going to see zebras and gazelles and things like that. I want to go see like you got to go see the primates, but also all the big cats and stuff. I like, but I could spend all day in the reptile house. Who do you recommend to learn stock trading? I don't know. There's lots of stuff online that you can try to learn it. I'm still in the I'm learning process. A 16-foot python they brought from Thailand when he was a kid. The air rifles use regular breathing air. Yeah, I thought it was. I thought that they were just compressed air cylinders. Catch a coral snake. I'd love to catch a coral snake. They don't have any here, not in Northern California. There might be some in the very southern tip of California, but Arizona and New Mexico, I think we can find them. Todd, you donated a snake? Growing up, I had a ball python that reached 12 feet. Wow, that's a big ball python. Alvin, I can't find the answer. Richard, can you answer the difference in power and sound with high flow cats being installed in front of the H pipe versus after the H pipe? I don't know what will happen there. My guess is that my guess is it will change the sound, but I don't know exactly. I mean, that's going to be a subjective thing, anyways. But I don't know. I don't know what the result is going to be, and I don't know how to quantify that, like with a decibel level or something. Yeah, whale sharks are very, very cool. Bear, 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 bear. Bryce, are you running this on a turbo combination? Because if you are, I wouldn't change the cam. Oh, like yeah, the polar bears too. Somebody mentioned that for the zoo. Yeah, if you go there, I like all of the like carnivore stuff, bears and wolverines and. Has anyone run lighter tension exhaust springs? I mean, because the valve is smaller. You have to go Gator and Reptile Parks in the south. Yeah, I've been to where do we go? I went to an alligator farm, but I think it was in Southern California. I've never been to Florida. I mean, I've been to Florida, but only on our way to go to the Bahamas or a cruise or whatever. I didn't go there and go around to all of the gator parks. Because the other thing I want to do when I go there, obviously, I want to take an airboat ride. I've never been on an airboat, and I think it would be awesome. On the early NA Celine S351s, they were hitting a wall at about 350 horsepower with the combo parts they were working with. Then they cut the intake plenum and added an inch to it and gained 30 to 40 horsepower. I've tested the Cobra intake manifold that they did that with, and I've tested the extended plenum and it didn't gain 40 horsepower. We even tested an extrude honed one and it didn't gain 40 horsepower. In the Alaska Anchorage Zoo, there's a wolf they bring out for show and tell. Somebody brought one to. We were at the dog park with Milo and Maya, and somebody brought a. I don't know how much wolf it was. It looked like 100%, but it seemed fairly nice. It was just really big and very wolf-like. I just saw Jaws and don't want to go in the ocean. You're like everybody else that saw Jaws. Bryce, I wouldn't change that cam. That's the right cam for your combination. You don't want a sloppy stage 2. Sloppy stage 2 is just going to make it softer down low. Yeah, I would imagine airboats have to be really, really loud, though, right? Bob, if you run a high boost engine on the dyno and had your air fuel curve lean from 12.5 to 13.5, we have had that happen because it wasn't tuned or we ran out of fuel or whatever. And during a dyno pull, as soon as we see the air fuel start going up like that, we pull the handle off immediately. We have had that happen and pulled it off, and it doesn't hurt anything. Going to build on 87 speed density. Mustang head scam intake. I recommend keeping it speed density and working on it. You got a couple choices. You can go to mass air, but even if you go to mass air, you're still going to have to tune it. You're going to have to do something with it because it's just putting a mass air on there. Unless you put a pro-am meter and the right size injector, you can kind of get close doing that, but you'd be much better off actually tuning it with some sort of tuning software for the factory EEC4. Or you can also do that with a speed density one, but or you could do it with an aftermarket one. And there are some now that they have, maybe the Mega Squirt, that just plug right into the factory harness, so that makes life a lot easier. Come on. So 80% are saying yes. Why are you 20% saying no? Why are you buzz killing it? I'm switching over live feed. Yeah, airboats got to be way loud. I remember I have been close to a couple of them. There were when we lived up in Tahoe. We lived in the Keys, and there was one driving around out in the Keys for some reason. I don't know why he was there doing that because it was plenty deep enough to be driving a boat in there because we had our boat in there. But he was driving his airboat in there, and it was really loud. And I don't even think his wasn't even like a hopped up LS one or anything. Ben Alameda spoke of using smaller spring pressure on exhaust valves due to exhaust pressure for more power. Cole, the GM engineer related to the supercharged North Star, clever North Star designation. I like that. Program mentioned that people at GM were aware of and watched the videos of me repurposing the North Star blower to the LS. Is that what that blower was? It was originally from a North Star? I call them the Cadillac blowers, but it would make sense that it's a North Star. There's a lot of pythons in Florida, but they're tough to find. Yeah, that's how snake hunting is a lot. I go out and especially as it gets later in the summer, I try to go out early in the morning. But if you go out, and like I said, I'm not just walking on a trail and looking around. I'm traipsing through the weeds and finding stuff to lift up and stuff. But it does get some days I go and there's nothing there. I said no because then we miss our 7 o'clock show. Fast TV for the best experience goes straight to the reservation in the Everglades. Is there only one reservation there? Rainbow Airboat Rides, Mikasuki Airboat Rides, whatever that is. They can also get you on snake hunts in that area. That would be great. Like I said, I'd love to go help somebody. Jay, you shouldn't be worried about deciding between 2 turbos or 1 turbo. Just do whatever fits there. There's not a benefit between one of those or the other one. Just put in what fits. Shadow Ops, I think you're worrying way too much about this valve spring thing. Turbo Centra's out. Did they ever find your cams, Turbo Centra? What video is North Star LS stuff? It's the low buck blower one that I did. Lots of gators there too. I'm hoping to see gators. Like I said, I've never seen gators in the wild. I was on a big 20-seater. Had 2 Cadillac 500s on it. It was loud. There's a supercharged North Star motor in the V Series, STS, and XLR. That's right. Did they also put the? Did they put a version of the? Not the LS9, but did they put a version of the LSA blower in the Cadillacs as well? Did they? Did the V Series? Did that also have one like a CTSV? Did it have that LS motor? It's hard to sneak up on a snake. It's actually not, from what I've been watching, it's not hard to sneak up on the pythons, especially ones that are laying in the sun, because the snakes have, since they have no natural enemies there, they got lots of confidence. But I got no problem making the dive. Chris, to give you an idea, the 6-liter will be about 30 foot-pounds more than a 5.3, like stock for stock. I have a video up that shows what a stock 4.8, 5.3, 6.0, 6.2, all of those make. So that video is up if you want to check out the power curves on. Rich, I see gators every week. I drive all over the South for work and we go fishing. Originally came from the California Bay Area, so this was a cool move. Yeah, that is a big difference. The CTSV had it. That's what I thought. It's the gators that you don't see that you need to worry about. Yeah. I like when you shine the lights on them. We had a skunk here last night. I didn't see it. You could smell it. So it had sprayed somewhere in this area, but I noticed it. I didn't notice it until I opened the door like at 1:30 to let the puppies go out and go to the bathroom. I'm like, whoa. Hey, I had to grab onto him and let him go to the bathroom and then bring him back in. I'm like, I do not want poor Milo and Maya. They got sprayed at this house already. And so I didn't want the puppies to have to go through that. Mikosuke Indians are the natives of the Everglades. Oh, cool. Their village is off the U.S. Highway 41. You know the way around reptiles. You will have more hands-on experience. That would be cool. I'll have to write that down. Thanks, Fast TV. That sounds so odd. Let's see. So it's off 41. I got my buddy in Georgia and hopefully in Florida too, doing some recon. Richard, this is my first engine, so I'm trying to get it right the first time. You will. Whatever spring you put in there, it's gonna be right. You talked about how it's okay to run boost turbos after changing ring gaps. Can you explain why? Well, we changed the ring gap because when you turbocharge a motor, you put heat into the rings. And when you put heat into the rings, they grow. And when they grow, they all have a gap in them from the factory. But if they grow, that gap goes away. And if that gap goes away, what happens is the ring will seize on the bore and it'll break the piston when it does that. So that's why you put extra gap in it. They'll have gap from the factory, not usually very much, sometimes in the teens, and that doesn't work under boost. So you put extra gap in there so that never happens. Also, is the Gen 4 block backwards compatible with a Gen 3? Yes, it is. Or do I have to update the harness and ECU? Well, yeah, you will have to. The harness is different, and I'm sure that if you're using a factory ECU, that would be different. Because where the Gen 4 is not going to have a cam sensor, and then the Gen 4s are, with very few exception, are going to be a 58X and a 4X cam sensor. It's going to be a 58X crank and a 4X cam. And also on the Gen 4 stuff, the cam sensor's up front and it's in the back on the block on a Gen 3. So some of those things are different. So when is more Plenum volume beneficial in your experience? I haven't seen that situation yet, with the exception that I always note is the 462 valve truck motor. They have a divider in the plenum, and they actuate the divider basically to join the plenum or not join the plenum. And then that seems to be worth this little bump in torque, but down like at 2,500 RPM, and then has no effect anywhere else. How's your wife feel about snakes? She does not like them. Is there a rule of thumb on how much vent breather a high horsepower engine should have? Well, it's going to be a function not just of power, but it's going to be a function of blow by and other things that are going on. The one that we use is a 3/4 inch hose coming out of the valve cover. and that's enough. It could be smaller than that. Stop by New York on my way home from. Is that for me? On my way home from Florida, just whip up there. I have been to New York. I like my trip to New York. If you get a chance to do some snakehead fishing, I've seen videos of those. Those things are cool. Fast TV, if you have any Florida questions, shoot me a PM. Yeah, I might. I've like I said, I've been there. I've flown through there, and I've trying to think of, did I race in Florida for World Challenge? I have been to the Daytona, not the Daytona 500, but the 24 hours of Daytona. I don't know much about the Ford SX 3.8 liter. But a turbo for 350 horsepower would be like a 3076. A GT3076. They're cheap ones from eBay and stuff. What about when you took the end plate off of 3800? That was a big Plenum. It was. Although, I'll bet you that just having that open doesn't do the same thing that it does like when we take the lid off of these things that have IR deals on them. I don't think that does the same thing, because some of that is still captured. Like it's, let's say it's 3/4 captured as 3/4 of the plenum. I know that that's going to have a resonating volume. Even if that one side lets some of it go, I know it would still have a resonating volume. Turbo or Hawaiian 174, which would you prefer? It depends on what you're trying to get done. But a turbo will make a lot more power than a Hawaiian. You can grab a 340 intake for testing. I would like to test a 300. I'm going to do the same thing to the 300 Ford that I'm going to do to the 2.2 liter Dodge, and that's just put a common plenum on top of the 2-piece intake manifold. And I can also make a 2-piece intake manifold that will be a 3-piece intake manifold and be like super long. It'll be the Super Richie Long version. Richard, is there anything else mandatory other than ring gap when running a maximum of 700 horsepower? Just the right. You need a fuel pump, you need injectors, you need a turbo, you need an intercooler. E85 would make it just like icing on the cake. Some kind of cam would be really good. 76%. I really kind of thought that would be 100%. Who would not want me to go wrestle pythons? Means I got to start working out though. From wrestling pythons, I got to get back in shape. Traipsing through the woods. Richard, any more thought into the 427 build GoFundMe program? I'm not doing that yet, but that might be something. I think that I'm thinking that I would want to do that after I actually get. I mean, this L78 it's been more than a year now. I need to get that together. Richard, that group at GM did not seem pleased with you messing with their parts bin by advertising the North Star blower's alternative uses. But I love the dyno testing. So they didn't like me running the North Star blower on the LS. They didn't want any inbreeding going on. That's it. Burns. Now that you bring that up, they're doing their own conversation. But one of my goals for this year is to learn to TIG weld. My buddy Jimmy said that he would, when I go back there, if we go back there and do some snake stuff, that he could show me. Have you tested a 4150 intake with an elbow and a big single throttle body? Yes. Not a big single throttle body. I've tested a 4150 intake with a 4150 4-hole throttle body and an elbow and a big throttle body. And the manifold determines the power, not either one of those things, either one of those two things, unless either one of those two things are somehow restrictive. But then it'll still do what the manifold does. It will just be chopped off a little bit at the top. The elbow doesn't change the power curve. Do you have a favorite turbo for V8 builds that can be had, new or used for under $500? There's lots and lots of turbos that you could buy that are less than $500. The GT45 was $265, and that's good for 700 horsepower. Richard, so spring seat diameters are the same in all LSs. Let's talk about what your LS is. What heads do you have? But I think that they are. I don't know about an LS7. Samby, a 200 shot on a stock bottom end 4.8, will it live? If you have a stock bottom end, do you have ring gap on it? Are you not doing ring gap on it? Do you have head studs on it? Do you have a different head gasket on it? Do you have the tune correct? What kind of gas are you using? We've run 300 shots on stock bottom end 5.3s. I don't recommend it. I think he made a limited number of spares, which now are probably all in the LS truck motors. Somebody bought Cole. Somebody bought like hundreds of these surplus Cadillac things from GM, I'm assuming, or from their supplier or whatever, because that's how we got a flood of these things way back. Nobody had anything that they could. I mean, you had to do it yourself from there to whatever you want to put it on. But it was a good starting point. And then when the guy came up with the adapter deal, then all of a sudden the price shot up, because otherwise you could buy these blowers for, I think I bought mine for $300 or something. How much horsepower would it take to be comfortable and feel accomplished and not want or need any more in a reasonably light car like a Fox? I don't know. That's your comfort level is different than everybody else's. That's an individual thing. My Mustang had 450 horsepower probably with my blower on it. And that was a 190 mile an hour car. So it was a lot of fun. I thought an elbow would change plenum volume, would change power since carb spacers affect power. Carb spacers affect power, I think, because of the signal change to the carburetor that I don't think is plenum volume related. The test that I want to do to verify that is I want to run the test that I did where we were changing carburetors and EFI and individual port tuning and stuff. But what I want to do is I want to run a carburetor on a single plane intake manifold that also has EFI. So I want to run a carburetor on it, tune it, and then put a spacer on it, and then tune it, and then do the same test with a 4-hole throttle body with the spacer and without the spacer, and see if that does anything. Is it only doing something to the carburetor, which is what I suspect? Because I don't think we'll see a change if we have an open. But I don't know. I want to test that and see. That's how I'll find out. Richard, pick up a cheap TIG. They all come from the same 3 factories. So even those, yes, welders are decent enough to start out with. I can MIG weld a little bit. I have a 110 hot box kind of thing. And all I want to be able to do, like, I don't want to weld for people. I don't want to do it as a vocation or anything. I just want to be able to make my own intake manifold. So I want to be able to weld tubes or standoffs to flanges. That's basically all I need to do. No gap, no stock gaskets. 116. There's on the Holly 650 carburetor. Yeah, on 116 octane, you can run a 200 shot. Just take timing away. Cole, happy to help. Chris, if it bucks at light throttle, is it a lean misfire? T, my Mustang did come with a 308 gear. Still have my 85 GLH turbo. Awesome. From high school, all modified. Crazy by chance. I have a 96 Civic B18 all-wheel drive turbo. Wow. What all-wheel drive setup did you put on there? Did you use a CRV or something? Used to make wooden carb spacers. They seem to keep the carb cooler. They tend to wear out and leak after some time. They do, but wood's a really good insulator, though. I remember the old clothespin on the fuel line trick. Get you a Cobra torsion, weld aluminum with oxyacetylene. Have you ever stroked a 4.6 to a 302? Yes, I have. And I'd never done a comparison though for like a stock one or something. We have done 5-liter versions of it. I kind of don't recommend that. Have you ever tested bike engines? Only on the chassis dyno. I've seen the 8.8 diff on the all-wheel drive Honda swaps. What I want is an all-wheel drive K24 turbo drivetrain with an Omni, or even better, a Horizon body on it. And it needs to be like, 700 horsepower. Minimum. 2 more minutes. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of our poll at 77%. What do you people know? A Sprint with all-wheel drive. It doesn't make enough power to spin the all-wheel drive. And it can't spin the tires anyways. So the consensus is Plenum volume is less important than runner length. I think it is by a lot. Takes a little time to get a feel for feeding the rod, I would think. Is there more dynos or builds coming? Yes. How much am I leaving on the table from a 4.8 to a 5.3? You can look at the video and see how much power they make. It's about 50 foot-pounds between the two. The 4.8 made 330 and the 5.3 made 355 or so, but the torque was a big difference. You think all-wheel drive would be faster or slower at Bonneville? It depends. In a Civic, it would be slower, but for some applications where they have trouble putting power down, it might have a benefit. CRV, okay. So how does more Plenum volume mean more torque? I don't think that it does. Longer runners definitely does. Don't chop up the GLH. I'm not going to do that to mine. I would just do that to another one. Yeah, I sell the stock specs. Gotta go learn all that there is about pythons. Think I'm good. I've been watching this stuff my whole and reading this about this stuff my whole life. Recal, are you in Florida? I've seen some all-wheel drive cars put the hurting on guys on the street when when they're trying to manage traction. When the other two-wheel drive guys are K-swap or Rampage, that'd be good. Individual runners have no plenum volume. They actually have infinite plenum volume. More power. What do you know about pythons? Everything. I just want to catch a 10-footer. I think a 15-footer would be even better. But Car Farm did have a couple of Rampages. I don't know what kind of shape they were in. If I got something, it'd have to be rust free. Oh, we will definitely have video of everything. I mean, I take video of catching ringneck snakes. So I'm definitely gonna have video of if we go and catch a python. Is a backfire from a two-step anti-lag bad for an engine if done a lot? I think it is. I think it's abusive. So Burns, you had an all-wheel drive N54. Boosty boost. Somebody has any more questions? Have you seen the tiny eyeless snakes that hide in flower pots? No. What are they called? Let me see if I've seen them. Idophilus braminus. The Brahmini blind snake. Oh, a blind snake. Okay, I have heard of those. They look like worms, right? Yeah. Am I missing something? I thought plenum volume was under the throttle blade in a space that all runners shared. It technically the resonating volume, and yours will be the last question because that's a good one. The Helmholtz resonance, and this will determine the plenum volume. The plenum volume actually isn't just the plenum attached to the runner. The resonating frequency is determined by that size, the runner, the head port, half of the cylinder when the valve is open, and then also a portion of the air intake in front of the throttle body. All of that is the resonating volume that determines Helmholtz resonance. For me, the plenum is the thing that's, goes from the throttle body to the runner. That's kind of what everybody's definition of plenum is. Naked mole rats. That's one of my favorite books that I read to my boys. Wrestle the garter snake. Yes, I remember being at the ranch and finding a garter snake under a board that we were at because it was right by a pond, and so they like to hang out there because they would swim around, and there was lots of pollywogs and stuff in there, so they'd eat those and eat the frogs and stuff. And catching the garter snake, and then there was another one under there too, and so I handed the garter snake to my son. I said, "Here, hold on to this. It's really nice. We'll bite you." And it immediately turned around and bit him. Can you fund projects by catching snake and selling their oil? Yes, and we can call it what is the not Promax? What is the Prolong? We can call it Prolong. Snake long. Reptilian. RB26 engines have the plenum before the throttle plates. They use ITBs in the runner. Yeah, the plenum is just the big part attached to the runner. So BMWs are like that too. If you can have the plates down in the runner somewhere, that's fine. But usually a single throttle plate opens up into the plenum. But having the plates there doesn't change the resonating volume at all. So imagine that happening, and every time that does that, it sends a pressure wave, and that pressure wave goes wow down into the runners. Usually what happens is it gets hit by lots of other reverse reflecting waves and gets canceled out. Sometimes it goes down and arrives and helps stuff. What resonance are you looking for? Well, it depends on when you want to arrive. Same thing with runner length. And on that note, I can get rid of my eyeless snake up here. Thank you guys all for showing up. I will be back tomorrow. Bam, 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 bam.